What is up, everybody? This is Rebecca Johnson of Supergirl Radio. So I'm just getting the live stream started here. We'll be getting officially started momentarily. Something, not even just some things, but something happened this week that was pretty big that made us change our plans. We were initially tonight, or this week of Supergirl Radio, going to be digging into the Tomorrowverse movies, start to finish, because we had only really talked about the Legion of Superheroes movie. And when we were very confused by Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 1, we decided we were going to go back to the beginning with Superman Man of Tomorrow. Yes, Superman Man of Tomorrow is the one. And since some Supergirl casting came out this week, we had to change plans. So we figured that this would be a good time to really just take all of this in one episode, make a one episode about this news and the reactions to it and our thoughts on it. So if you have any thoughts about Milly Alcock and her casting for Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, feel free to drop those thoughts in the comment section of the live chat, and we will get to them as we go along. So I'm just hanging out here waiting for Morgan to pop in. But if you do have any thoughts you want to share, feel free to do that. I did see some feedback that came in via email by Mark for Crisis on Infinite. Ooh, that's a lot to say. Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 1. But we won't probably get to that until we do our Superman Man of Tomorrow review, because it seems like it would be best to discuss it then, because next week we might be doing a pilot pod in conjunction with the Supergirl casting news. So we may have to push Superman Man of Tomorrow back about 2 weeks. So we will get to the Tomorrowverse, but some of this casting news has thrown us for a loop a little bit. So we will get to the Tomorrowverse so that we can fully understand what's happening in Crisis on Infinite Earths. I thought just reading the comic book several times would prepare me for that movie, but the comic book apparently was not the homework. So the Tomorrowverse movies will get their due here on Supergirl Radio. So if you do have any thoughts or comments or questions that you want to share, drop them in the live chat and we'll get to them. And I will check in with Morgan to see if she is having troubles getting into StreamYard, because sometimes that is the case. And I've been having some buggy StreamYard things as well. So we will hang out for a second. I will say that in preparation for this episode that we are doing about Milly Alcock, I did watch, and we'll probably talk about this more next week, but I did watch the 5 episodes that she is in. I'm almost finished with the 5th episode of House of the Dragon. I'll share my thoughts on that But House of the Dragon, I don't think is a show for me personally. But I did have some pretty fun discussions with some friends of mine. Hopefully, I didn't make them too mad at some of my thoughts that I was sharing about it. But I just had a lot of genuine questions about the world and the culture and the stories and the characters of that world. So we will probably talk about that more in depth if we do a House of the Dragon pilot bot. So we will probably be doing that next week. And I forgot to include a link. I'll do it after the live stream is over, but I wanted to also include a link to a trailer for Upright, which is a TV show, I believe, an Australian maybe TV show that Milly Alcock was in. I've only seen the trailer and a couple of scenes, but I'll talk more about my reaction to that because I think that's actually more indicative of Milly's potential as Supergirl than House of the Dragon. So that is my personal opinion. So we'll see about that. Let's see. I'm going to check in with Morgan. Hang with me for a second. All right, hang on a tick. I may actually. Oh, there's Morgan. I see you. I was trying to message you, but my N key on my keyboard is stuck, and so
oh no,
I've been having trouble with my. I think I just need to get a new laptop. Streaming has been messed up. My N key keeps sticking and unsticking, and so I couldn't. You coming ? Because I couldn't get the N key to work.
I was trying to get in. For some reason, it was like giving me a hard time for like, I was like, I do this all the time. Let me in.
StreamYard strikes again.
StreamYard.
All right. Well, I think if as long as you got the doc, we can officially get started here, if that is cool with you. All right. Well, I guess we'll get to it.
McGurk! I love typing.
Not mess with my Google Docs, Meeksy.
Supergirl Radio is going live every night of the week. How do you like it? Is becoming a human burrito a plus or a minus? I don't know. It does seem snug.
I mean, they say you are what you eat.
Kira. I love that.
So I do a podcast called Supergirl Radio, and one of our segments is Lena Luthor, Boardroom or Ballroom. Because
she looks like a boss in this coat.
Nasty Luthor like a different Luthor? It's not just Lena being mean?
No.
Helen Slater here. So fun to know that you're hosting a podcast called Supergirl Radio.
Yes! Welcome to Supergirl Radio, your source for all things related to the CW Supergirl TV series and the character of Kara Zor-El. My name is Rebecca Johnson.
I'm Morgan Glennon.
And we are live and wired on the DCTV Podcast YouTube channel and the Supergirl Radio Facebook page to discuss the big news that happened this week, that actress Milly Alcock has been cast as the DCU's Woman of Tomorrow. A pretty big thing happened, and I'm already within just a minute frozen. Oh, am I on frozen?
You're back.
Oh, okay. Good. All right. Well, that solved that issue. I guess the big news was just too much for the screen to handle.
The news was too big.
So it was funny. Morgan and I spent last week preparing what we were going to do for most of 2024, really plotting out the episodes.
Great about it. They're like, nothing's going to throw us off this course of action.
So we've had to adjust our plan. We were going to cover the Tomorrowverse movies from the first movie, Superman, Man of Tomorrow. And so now we're going to have to push that back a little bit because we decided collectively that this news was big enough that it required its own episode of Supergirl Radio. So we'll probably do this for this week, and then maybe we'll do a House of the Dragon pilot pod next week, much to my chagrin, I guess. We'll get there. And it looks like Bunsen has joined us for this news.
Zooming in on Bunsen. Bunsen, why do you always do this? If you want to look at the camera, you better look at the camera for long enough for a Instagram clip. Look at it.
You had to do it for the gram.
No,
Bunsen.
he's like, you can't tell me what to do.
Yeah, but this news is pretty big. Actress Milly Alcock has been cast as Supergirl, so she will be in the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow film live action film adaptation, and possibly more. We will get to that. So there are some news reports that we have pulled together, and also some reactions. And we'll also talk about our thoughts on this, as well as your thoughts. If you have some in the live chat, feel free to drop your thoughts about this casting, and we will get to those when we can. But before we get into anything, I guess we need to get to
the news.
And we sure do. And
you're up first,
and it's coming up right now. And I was prepared. I was definitely prepared. Okay. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Warner Brothers' Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, is taking flight with House of the Dragon star Milly Alcock. The Hollywood Reporter has confirmed she'll star in the feature as Kara Zor-El, the cousin of Superman. That would be a different twist, I think.
She did have a son with Superman in the Peter David iteration. Yeah.
What?
Okay, so that's a whole story, but that was not the Kara Zor-El. That was the Linda Danvers, like the Matrix Supergirl mixed in together with that satanic cult follower. That was that Supergirl who had a child with Superman. So
Sounds
not Kara Zor-El. It's a beautiful story.
Beautiful. Sounds so amazing. Why aren't they making that the movie? That seems like a really like a easy intro to the characters.
Really, you can just really jump right on in.
You don't need context.
We've got to get to the Peter David run.
Oh my God, we really do. Alcock screen tested for DC Studios bosses James Gunn and Peter Safran last week, along with Meg Donnelly, who was also in contention for the role. The character is expected to appear in a DC Studios project or two before her solo adventure, but it's unclear if that project will be Gunn's Superman Legacy, which begins filming this spring, or another DC movie or show. I have some guesses. That wasn't in the article.
I guess let's stop there. So I don't think anything is coming out before Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow is the thing. The only thing that's coming out is Superman Legacy, to my knowledge. I don't know if there are I know there was Creature Commandos, maybe. Is that supposed to come out first?
That isn't that a TV show though?
It is. I think it's an animated TV show.
So maybe Supergirl could be in that, and Milly could be doing the voice, but I don't think we'd see her in the flesh until the Superman movie.
Yes. So I'm trying to find a release date. I'm seeing 2024, but I don't see a date for it. So I guess that is possible. It could be. I hadn't thought about that. It could have been Creature Commandos.
Yeah.
So that could be possible. So I guess we'll kind of keep an eye out for that. I originally just thought it's definitely going to be Superman Legacy, but it could be Creature Commandos if that's coming out in 2024.
Yeah, I didn't think of that either, that there could be a different project, but I still feel like it's probably Superman.
Most likely. I would imagine that either the end or somewhere within the film, he's like, "Happy birthday, Kara. It's your 21st birthday. How are you going to spend it?" And she's like, "I'm going to go to another planet and get drunk." And then she flies.
Party.
And she flies off, and then that is your tease to Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. That is my anticipation of the easiest route for her to appear in, but they could do any number of things.
They could surprise us, that's for sure. Where was I? Oh, Supergirl is moving like a speeding locomotive, and it's possible the feature could be shooting in the fall if Warner's soon finds a director. Anna, did I jump something?
Oh, no. I was going to jump in, but finish this sentence.
Anna Noguera is penning the script.
Anna Noguera, maybe.
You are correct.
So I guess the only other thing I want to kind of stop and talk about is that It says that it's possible that it could be featuring. He could be shooting in the fall. How?
Hmm.
They don't have a director. Usually with pre-production, you have to spend a quite a long time in pre-production building sets, making costumes, plotting out CGI. I mean, that's pretty fast in my opinion. If it's maybe it's like late fall, maybe it's like November, December.
Like November, December, fall. Yeah.
Maybe not like September.
They're like fall, like August, late August. No, it's strange to me that they're like, obviously it's gonna move really quickly now. We've almost got a script and we're thinking about a director. It's like, what? That's not usually how those things work.
The director can have a say in when some of this stuff is happening.
The director might have some opinions about how this goes, but
but if they could get their stuff together, I mean, that could be exciting if it starts shooting in late fall, late December.
That's why it's my suspicion is that she's in Superman Legacy, because that's shooting very soon.
Yes.
And so that's why I feel like they probably are casting her now versus after they have a director and like a finished script. But showbiz. Back to the Hollywood Reporter. They said Alcock broke out as the younger version of
Rhaenyra. I learned that in the last 2 days where I've been binging House of the Dragon.
Rhaenyra
Yes.
Targaryen in season 1 of HBO's House of the Dragon, a spinoff of Game of Thrones. Now she enters the comic book realm with the new feature partially inspired by the Tom King and Bilquis Evely miniseries of the same name.
It may be Bill Kiss. I'm not sure.
Kiss? Okay.
If we ever get to interview her, we'll have to ask her for the correct pronunciation. Now, I do want to stop here, Morgan.
Yeah.
It says the new feature partially inspired by the Tom King and Bilquis Evely miniseries.
Wait, what? Wait a minute.
I feel uncomfortable about that.
Like the way that the TV show was partially inspired by some of the comics, like Snapper Car Never Snapping.
Not once.
I don't like that. Inspired by. Take out the Control Alt delete that partially.
That partially makes me very nervous because I'm worried. I'm just gonna express my concern. They may think Comet the Superhorse is too goofy.
Do you think that we could start like a write-in campaign right now to save Comet in the movie?
I just want Comet to make the final draft. I don't want them to throw Comet out. I really need Supergirl to ride on Comet's back through space. I just really need for that to happen. So the partially I don't feel comfortable with, but I'm trusting that they will honor the story.
Mind the Gap says in the chat, I'm guessing that there are specifics of the comic that can't be adapted into a movie. And I could see that. Yeah, maybe they might, they stopped at a lot of planets on the the comics.
Lots of places.
Had like little side adventures. They might need to trim that down for, like a 2-hour feature. So I choose to believe that there's no way that they could cut Comet. He is integral to the plot.
I'm so nervous about it, but we'll see. Hopefully he'll stay in there. I think what also they could be doing is there's a lot of narration in the book because it's like
that's true.
What do you call that about the not untrusted narrator, the unreliable narrator, I guess, from Ruthie, where she's sort of telling the story of her book. So they may be taking some liberties with that because maybe they don't want to have a lot of voiceover, or they may not want to have a lot of narration guiding the story. I don't know. So that could be the case that they're just keeping the story, but like formatting it in a different way that makes more sense for film. I'm hoping that's the case.
I'm hoping that they're not cutting anything that we truly love. It sounds like already that Crypto is going to be in it, so that's great.
Yeah, we got Crypto.
But I want confirmation of Comet. Do you think it's too? Is it too weird if I just constantly tweet at James Gunn and just like send him pictures of horses and say Comet in movie?
Just send him an emoji of like that horse head and then like a heart.
Or like the guy in the horse head, the dancing, that gif, and then I'll just be like, Comet? Question mark. we just want to keep it top of mind, you know.
This is our one chance. We tried so hard on the Supergirl TV show to make that happen in our mind. We tried to make that happen, and it didn't come through. So this is our chance.
This is our shot, our opportunity.
It's not going to come around again. We got to take it. So hopefully they will hear our cries for Comet the Super Horse and keep that in, and that be the partial that they retain.
We got to keep the faith here. We got to keep the faith for Comet. It says Milly is a fantastically talented young actor, and I'm incredibly excited for her to be being a part of the DCU. Gunn wrote on social media Monday. Yes, I first became aware of her in House of the Dragon, but I was blown away by her varied auditions and screen tests for #Supergirl. He added that she embodied the character as envisioned by comic book writer King, comic book artist Everly, and screenwriter Noguera. Noguera?
I think Noguera.
Noguera seems right.
Think, yeah.
Yeah. Gunn and Safran have said this is not the Supergirl audiences are used to. She will stand in contrast to her hopeful cousin Superman. As Gunn told reporters in late January 2023, we will see the difference between Superman, who was sent to Earth and raised by loving parents from the time he was an infant, versus Supergirl, raised on a rock, a chip off of Krypton, and who watched everyone around her die and be killed in terrible ways for the first 14 years of her life, and then come to Earth.
I think that's a little misleading to say she's not like her hopeful cousin Superman, as if she's not hopeful, even though she's seen a lot of tragedy.
Listen, if you're going to ask her to give a speech, guess what the topic is?
It's going to be hope. She's going to have a hope speech.
She even does it in the comics. It's not like it's like, yes, based off this comic where she like famously doesn't give a hope speech. Like, I got some bad news. That's sort of her whole thing.
Yeah. So I think that's a little misleading, but it is correct to say that this is maybe a version of Supergirl that people would not be anticipating, because she is a little rougher around the edges. She drinks, she cusses. She gets in bar brawls. So that is, and she also retains some of her comic book mythology from the Silver Age with the Red Kryptonite and the Earth Angel Firewings from the Peter David run. So that's why I'm so excited that Woman of Tomorrow is being made, because it will give you a really good introduction to all things Supergirl throughout her comic book history. So hopefully they will keep some of that. Well, per reports from Variety, the outlet reminds us that Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow does not yet have a director, and Ana Noguera was just hired to write the screenplay in November 2023.
I didn't give her very long.
Yeah. If they're shooting in the fall, hopefully she can get through.
I hope Anna's working.
She is spending day and night working on this thing. Gunn, who confirmed Alcock's casting on Instagram, is not stated when Alcock will make her superhero debut, but the fact that the news that Alcock landed the role broke months before Gunn will begin shooting Superman Legacy suggests that Supergirl may first show up alongside her Kryptonian cousin before setting off on her own story. So Variety thinks it's Superman Legacy. Yeah. Variety also writes, quote, the Australian-born Alcock started her acting career as a teenager on Aussie TV before she was cast in her breakout role on HBO's Game of Thrones prequel series, which is House of the Dragon. Alcock won wide acclaim for her performance as the striving Targaryen princess in Striving? What was she striving for? I have lots of questions. The striving.
I feel like you should know more than I would. What was she striving for, Rebecca?
I don't know. I have a lot of questions about that show. I really don't want to get into it at this very moment, but I will have a rant if we do a pilot pod. But if someone can explain her story to me other than she just kind of goes around and does things. I mean, that's the problem. Okay, I'm just going to get into it. House of the Dragon has mostly no story, and I have lots of questions about it. So
we're going to get into that next week.
Come back to Supergirl Radio for the pilot pod of House of the Dragon next week. We will have a lot of I will have a lot of hot takes about House of the Dragon that I'll bring to the table. But it says, as the striving Targaryen princess in the first 5 episodes of the show before she ceded the role to Emma Darcy after the show jumped forward in time 10 years, unquote. I guess this is a good place to talk about her performance, I guess, in House of the Dragon. I will say that for what she was given, she was very believable and solid in the role of Rhaenyra. I don't think I like any of the characters on House of the Dragon, but I believed everything she said and did. So I will say that that's a good acting job on her part. I would also like to add that I've been trying to do some research because, when these things happen, I want to go back into the filmography see where they came from, because I hadn't really known anything from Milly Alcock before the Supergirl thing came into play. And one thing I did want to watch more of, because I did watch the trailer for it and some scenes that she was in, but there's a show called Upright that I watched the trailer of, and I was like, oh, this is a better indicator of her being able to play Kara, especially in Woman of Tomorrow, because in Upright, which from what I understand is a story about Milly Alcock's character coming into contact with this man who's trying to transport his piano, his upright piano. I don't know what the full story is, but she's having to help him get his piano somewhere. And so they're on this adventure together, which sounds a lot like Woman of Tomorrow. And in that trailer, she's like cussing at him. She's got a real attitude. She's kind of snarky with him. And I was like, okay, I can see it. I see it. So I found it funny after I started doing a little digging into Milly Alcock that I was like, why is everybody talking about the House of the Dragon? This Upright show is actually what is a better indicator of her ability to pull off Kara. So I found that really upsetting personally, because I was like, the House of the Dragon is fine, whatever. People like it. It's not for me. But this Upright show, I would watch that show.
This could be. I actually, when you were telling me it, because I had never heard of it, surprisingly. But when you told me about it, I looked it up, and it looks like it might be available on AMC Plus. And as somebody who has accidentally subscribed to every streaming service and then forgotten to unsubscribe, I have AMC Plus.
Okay.
So I was like, should I look it up? I forgot to look it up when I got home today, but I'm gonna look it up because I'm gonna get into it. I'm gonna do my research.
Would you like to come and report back? Would you like to?
I will report. I
don't think I have access to that.
I will report back. I will see. We'll see if it's anywhere else besides AMC Plus.
I'll try to see if I can.
It might be available on YouTube, but I'm not sure.
If that's the case, I'll check it out on YouTube. But I was just so flabbergasted. I was like, did nobody else watch this but me? Like, this is what people should be talking about. This is what I think prepares her to play Kara in Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. So if you're interested in Milly Alcock's filmography to get a sense of what it might be like for her to play Supergirl, I would not go to House of the Dragon. I would go to this Upright, which I think is a series. I think it is. TV show.
It's a TV show. It's got 2 seasons. It says drama, but it very much seems like it's a comedy.
I think it's probably a little bit of both.
Yeah, it says the Wikipedia says it's an Australian comedy series, and it looked like it ran in like 2019 through 2021. And if it's an Australian TV show, yes, it has 8 episodes each season. I was like, then Perfect. I bet it is short.
If it's anything like Fisk, which everyone should watch on Netflix.
I have had that on my list for a while. I feel like I don't know if Mike's going to want to watch it with me, so it might be my next solo show. When he plays video games, I watch Fisk.
Fisk. Fisk is a high quality Australian comedy. So if it is anything to the level of Fisk, I will probably enjoy it. Mind the Gap in the chat says Just Watch is an app that should tell you where shows stream. So that is a good tip in case we need to know that. So thank you for that. So we will try to see if we can find it, and we'll let everybody know if we are able to locate it. And I see in the chat, Stanley asks, do you have a preference for her costume? We'll get to talking about the costume because there is also another news report that sort of references costume stuff. Morgan, do you want to talk about the Variety article that talks about the casting process?
I would love to.
You see it in the doc.
But Bunsen just knocked over everything on my desk.
Oh, okay.
So
would you like me to get into it?
No, I've got it. I just put some stuff that he left, so the destruction has ceased. Variety also gave us a look into the casting process, writing, when it came to casting the new Supergirl, DC Studios exec James Gunn went above and beyond before honing in on Milly Alcock to star in the upcoming film Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. Sources say Gunn and co-CEO Peter Safran flew multiple actors, including Meg Donnelly, to Atlanta for old-fashioned on-screen auditions on the Superman Legacy set. The actors also suspicious. The actors also donned the Supergirl suit and boots, which is an atypical move in the superhero audition process. Though Jamie Doran once wore a makeshift Superman costume to his ill-fated audition for the 2013's Man of Steel. That's such a tough blow to just put in there. Like, he didn't get it though.
So this is not atypical. This is actually very typical. Henry Cavill wore a suit for his auditions for Man of Steel. I'm trying to think who else did this. Because Henry Cavill wore, I think, one of Christopher Reeve's suits maybe when he was doing some screen tests for the Dark Knight trilogy. I feel like Christian Bale wore one of Val Kilmer's Batman suits. So this is not atypical. This is actually very typical. I'm curious though if they made a suit for her. It says don the Supergirl suit and boots. So I don't know if they had a suit that they've already designed.
Do you think that they just asked the WB if they could borrow the Supergirl suit from like Supergirl the TV show? Since they probably don't have a suit already, I would think. Mind the Gap in the chat said most actors who play Batman audition in the Batman Forever suit.
Yeah, so this is not atypical. It's very typical, actually. It's possible that they either sort of like makeshift made a Supergirl suit, just kind of like did like a, some red boots and a red skirt, like a thing with an S. Like they might have like kind of made something for them for the screen tests, or maybe they use one of Melissa's suits. I don't know. So it's very possible. And I actually assumed that they were doing that. Because if you're going to have a screen test for a superhero, part of the thing is how do they look in the suit?
How do they look in the suit?
Be able to pull it off? Yeah. So I'm not surprised to hear that they had these actresses in the Supergirl suit. Let's see. Do you want to carry on with is this
I would love to.
Variety? Is this a Variety article?
Variety says Gunn first sparked to Alcock when he saw her playing
Rhaenyra
Targaryen in HBO's House of the Dragon, but Donnelly made it a close contest and had the advantage of having voiced the role of Kara Zor-El, Supergirl, in several Warner Brothers Home Entertainment's animated films, including last year's Legion of Superheroes, which we covered.
We do. There's
a whole episode.
We have an episode on that if you want to check it out.
Ultimately, Gunn was looking to move away from previous depictions of the Girl of Steel, particularly the long-running CBS CW series fronted by Melissa Benoist, and is aiming for a less earnest and more edgy version of the iconic superheroine. In the new iteration, Supergirl travels across the galaxy to celebrate her 21st birthday with Crypto the Superdog. Along the way, she meets a young woman named Ruthie and winds up on a murderous quest for revenge.
That's misleading because I don't think Supergirl is wanting to do the murderous quest. Makes it seem like they're going to kill a dude, and as we've talked about, that's maybe not what happens at the end. I mean, Ruthie like wants to kill.
Ruthie's like,
Prim.
listen, I do want it to be murderous. That's my goal. And Kara's like, not sure about the murderous aspect of it. But
I'll go on your quest, but not for a murderous quest.
Yeah, I feel like they are simplifying the story a little bit for this article. Gunn himself weighed in on the matter on Threads on Tuesday, saying, Milly was the first person I brought up to Peter for this role well over a year ago when I had only read the comics. I was watching House of the Dragon and thought she might have the edge, grace, and authenticity we needed. It says the project has endured many false starts. Oh, don't we know that? Don't we know that? Around the same time that the nearly finished Batgirl film was shelved as a tax write-off following the Warner Media Discovery merger, the studio also quietly killed a Supergirl movie in the development stage. Sasha Calle,
Kajay,
yeah, I got it this time. I finally got it. Sasha Calle, who plays the caped cousin of Kal-El, was introduced in last year's The Flash movie and was poised to get a spin-off of the Ezra Miller-led tentpole. After Gunn and Safran took the DC reins in 2022, they started from scratch on Supergirl. Anna Nogueira, The Vampire Diaries, is writing the screenplay, while DC looks to attach a director in the coming weeks.
Yeah, so I had kind of forgotten that Anna Nogueira was writing a Supergirl movie for Sasha Calle, and then when that stopped,
oh my God,
James Gunn was like, "Hey, why don't you take another stab on Supergirl with this story in mind?" So that's where this is. It's interesting. James Gunn is using Threads. He might be the only person on planet Earth who is writing things with Threads.
As announced on Threads, and I was like, announced?
Why? No one is there.
Sure, all right.
There's only a lot of people on Threads because no one can leave.
Once you sign up for Threads, you cannot unsign up for Threads. Anyway, find me on Threads at Mojo
So that's interesting that he talked about this on Threads. So I guess if you're watching House of the Dragon, feel free to let us know what did you think about Milly's performance on House of the Dragon. Do you have a lot of questions about the tapestries in the castle? Because I sure do. So if you want to share your House of the Dragon hot takes, email us at supergirlradio@gmail.com.
We're gonna get into it next week. We're gonna dive on in. I think next week's episode is gonna be really fun too, because Rebecca has watched House of the Dragon.
Did not watch Game of Thrones.
She did not watch Game of Thrones. I have not yet watched House of the Dragon, but I have watched and been disappointed by the ending of Game of Thrones, which is why I was like, when House of the Dragon came out, I was like, you know what? Fool me once. But you know what? Anything for Supergirl.
I have learned that you can't just jump into the House of the Dragon TV series if you had not watched Game of Thrones. Because
it sounds like they did not make it very approachable. That's for sure.
I have a lot of friends who watch Game of Thrones that I was texting, and I was like, "Oh, what is this? How does this work? What is this culture about?" And they were telling me all this stuff, and I was like, "Yeah, but that's not in this show. That's not here. How would I have
relying on you having watched Game of Thrones?" It's like, but it is kind of funny because it's like Game of Thrones was this huge show, and then to capitalize on it, they make this spinoff, and you would think that like maybe they would make this spinoff so like people who felt left out by Game of Thrones could be like, oh, now I can jump in on this one because this one's brand new and I don't have any of that baggage, and it's a prequel anyway, so what do I need to know? And then you go in, they're like the Targaryens from way back, and you're like, what?
So just know that going in, if you have not watched Game of Thrones, it might be difficult to follow and understand. So that is something we'll talk about next week. I'm kind of bitter that I might have to watch that pilot again. But I think I owe it to Morgan because I'm about to make her watch another Green Lantern movie. So it's on record that Morgan does not care for Green Lantern.
I don't care. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. One of these days we're gonna watch something and I'm gonna turn to you and I'm gonna be like, I understand now. I understand the Green Lantern. I love him.
So if I have to put Morgan through another Green Lantern movie, I guess it's fair that I should have to watch The House of the Dragon and talk about the pilot. So if you're interested in that, we'll be talking about Milly Alcock again next time around on Supergirl Radio, talking about the pilot of the House of the Dragon series. I guess before we get into the reactions, Morgan, let's hop in the chat and see if anybody has any thoughts they want to share.
I saw a couple of interesting ones because let me find it. A couple people weighed in on some thoughts about directors. And here is one from Resonant Justice, who says Kate Herron from Loki season 1 and upcoming episodes of Doctor Who and Last of Us season 2 is rumored to direct. She was liking a bunch of posts from Milly and James Gunn. We shall see.
I actually would not be opposed to that. I actually liked Loki season 1 a lot, and it handled a universe of like various places and people, and really had a good emotional core to it of just like two leads that were kind of the main characters of the adventure. And so I thought Loki season 1 was handled really well. I haven't seen season 2, so I can't speak to season 2 yet, but I would not be opposed to somebody from Loki season 1 being a part of Woman of Tomorrow.
I looked at her directing credits just to see, and besides doing upcoming I don't know which episode of The Last of Us. Oh, she directed, it looks like, the first episode of season 2. But she was also a director on a TV show called Daybreak, and also on a TV show called Sex Education, which I really like. So that's 2 projects she's been involved in that I've liked. So that seems good.
I wish we could get a filmmaker, because filmmaking and television directing are very different, because a film like a feature film is the director's vision. Television directing, you're kind of second fiddle as a TV director. The writers are the more important people in television.
That's true.
And then also with TV directing, you have to abide by the standards of what the show has set up. So you can't go and do your own thing on a TV show. You have to kind of stay within the style. So I really wish we could get a filmmaker. But if we can't, I could be okay with somebody from Loki season 1, because I think that was handled really well. I was actually really impressed with, and I'm not a Marvel person. I'm not like an MCU fan. I quit after the first Ant-Man movie, so I'm not an MCU person, but I really liked Loki season 1, so that should say something. And also, I would not be surprised if maybe James Gunn has reached out to people who he knows through the MCU. That would not surprise me either.
Yeah, that's true. So our comment from Kenneth in the chat, who says, my choice to direct Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow is Bryce Dallas Howard. Loved her episodes of Mando. She's the daughter of the legendary Ron Howard, and she would be a great director choice for Supergirl. Now, I thought that was interesting. Also, Derpy Entertainment in the chat also said, I hope Bryce Dallas Howard directs. I thought this was interesting because Rebecca and I, sometimes we chat about breaking news, and that name came up when we were chatting about it.
That would also be my first choice. Bryce Dallas Howard has already had experience of directing a space western with The Mandalorian. So I think she would be a good fit, and her episodes are very good. The Mandalorian as a show itself is very good, and those episodes are pretty cinematic. I would also probably say that about Loki season 1 as well.
Yeah.
Even though it's a TV series, it looks cinematic. So I think the high production value of those 2 shows, I think, lend itself to more cinematic filmmaking. So I think Bryce Dallas Howard is my number 1, but we'll see. I think I would be okay with either of those 2 choices, the Loki season 1 director or my girl Bryce Dallas Howard. I think it should be great.
I love the idea of Bryce Dallas Howard because of what you said, which is like this movie will likely be a space western because the comic was a space western, and Bryce Dallas Howard has already directed that.
She knows the genre.
Yeah, she knows the genre.
Yeah, I think westerns is such a specific thing, and adding them into space, but I think Loki season 1 has a little bit of that adventure feel to, I think, some of Woman of Tomorrow. So I'm not writing that off either. But Bryce Dallas Howard did come up in our personal conversation.
I was like, look at the chat's on the same wavelength. We didn't even say anything, and they're already calling her out.
Yeah, so we'll see what they do in terms of directors. I think Resident Justice is sort of on our kind of shock about the timeline, saying it seems like the movie is moving faster than many of us thought. Hollywood Reporter said they might be locking down a director in the next few weeks. So we'll see. I guess we'll have to keep our eyes peeled on any director news that's happening. But if that is the case, where they're hoping to shoot in the fall of this year, they got to get somebody. So hopefully we'll hear some news on that front soon.
And I think you are next.
Oh, I'm
if we
sorry.
were going back to the doc, I wasn't sure.
And I meant to take Resonant's comment off, and I did. Oh, thank you so much. I forgot to remove it.
There was one comment that made me laugh, so I just wanted to pull it up. Mind the Gap says, for years there were not that many cars or L's, and now how many have we had in 10 years?
That's true. Supergirl is really, we're in the Renaissance now.
We are.
We're in the Supergirl Renaissance. There has been, of course, Melissa Benoist and Sasha Kaje. And I also don't want people to forget, well, and there was Laura Vandervoort during Smallville's run. But I don't want people to forget about Isabella Vidovich. She may not have put on the suit. She was not wearing the Supergirl suit, but she was a fantastic Kara Zor-El. And I want people to remember her because she got me through some season 6 stuff. And I just want to give her credit for that. She gave me the best Supergirl moment of season 6. So I just want to make sure that we honor her as a Supergirl among those many talented ladies. So I just want to throw her hat in the ring. So there is that. Okay, so I guess let's get to some of the reactions for well, actually, before we get to that, let's see. Well, there was one last thing from Deadline. The only different item of note from the Deadline article that came out about the casting is that, quote, there's been buzz that the new Supergirl will appear in Gunn's Superman Legacy, which is about to go before the cameras in Georgia, but that's not 100%. What we know now is that she'll appear in a DC-based project before starring in her solo feature, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, unquote. So Deadline thinks it's Superman Legacy, but nobody's totally sure. So I just wanted to point that out, that a lot of these outlets feel like it's Superman Legacy. I kind of feel like that's probably right. But let's keep our eyes on Creature Commandos.
I mean, it could be they could surprise us. They could zig when we thought they were going to zag.
Yeah. So let's keep an eye on that. Okay. So let's get to some of the reactions from the casting, starting with Supergirl herself.
As far as reactions, Milly Alcock took to Instagram to post, so excited to be a part of the DC fam. Thanks so much. Thank you so much to @JamesGunn for trusting me with Kara's Supergirl. Blue heart emoji, big eye emoji, blue heart emoji. Just trying to get the real vibe of it, for our audio listeners.
And she did post a picture of the cover of Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow #1. What you don't see is the sword that she's got in her hand there, but she did post a image from that cover, and James Gunn also replied to her saying, thank you for blessing us with your talent. And Stream on Max replied, you were always meant to fly, blue heart. So I guess we should be using blue hearts,
blue heart, everyone,
from now on. And then @Superman on Instagram did like a what is that emoji with the hands? Is that like a heart?
Is that like a heart emoji?
Is that like when you form the hearts, maybe?
Yeah, I couldn't tell because
I don't use that one a lot.
But I thought it could also be like the clapping emoji, but no, that's definitely the heart emoji.
Yeah, I feel like it's the hand thing. So a lot of the big
blue heart emoji.
A lot of the Warner Brothers accounts are replying to Milly, so people are really into it. So that was really cool to see her take to Instagram and actually talk about it as well. So it seems like she's pretty excited about it. So we will have to see if we get any more from Milly on social media. Well, James Gunn also confirmed the news to Instagram. In case you were like, whatever, the Hollywood Reporter. James Gunn himself also did chime in on this news, writing, quote, Milly is a fantastically talented young actor, and I'm incredibly excited about her being part of the DCU. I think we may have already covered this in one of those articles, but he says, yes, I first became aware of her in House of the Dragon, but I was blown away by her varied auditions and screen tests for Supergirl. She embodies Kara as envisioned by Tom King, Vilkas Evely, and Anna Noguera, unquote. What I would say that I like about James Gunn here is that he's really honoring the comic book story that this movie is based on. And I really appreciate that he's giving shout outs to the comic book creators that he's using this story from.
Yeah, it's really nice that he is calling out the creative team, especially because that comic was so great and also so beautiful. And a lot of times, maybe they'll call out the writer, but sometimes they often will forget to call out the artist. And the artist is especially in Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, like not calling out the artist in that would be insane to me.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Every page, every panel is something you would print out and frame and hang on your wall. So if you miss the chance to talk about Vilkas Evely when you talk about Woman of Tomorrow, ooh, that is a missed opportunity, because her art is beautiful. Some of the best I've ever seen in a comic book, to be honest. Not just because I'm a Supergirl fan doing a Supergirl podcast with my friend Morgan. This is just these are facts. Also, to James Gunn's post, Jim Lee replied saying, "Beautiful seeing it all come together." And he posted, what is that first emoji?
Is that like a puzzle piece emoji?
Maybe so. And then a red heart emoji, a blue heart emoji, and the yellow heart emoji. I appreciate the primary color. No, it's not emojis. It's heart. Like, yeah. It's red hearts, blue hearts, yellow heart.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the primary color hearts. The blue heart by itself, I don't know. I mean, I guess
heart
it works.
emoji.
but the primary colors actually makes it pop a little more, I think. And then James Gunn replied to Jim Lee saying, "I have to show you the test at some point. You're gonna freak out." So he must have obviously recorded the screen test, and maybe somewhere down the line when we have maybe bonus material for your physical media, which you should all
DVD anymore. If
you should
Blu-ray.
You should always have your physical media. So maybe we'll get to see that screen test at some point, because I would be curious what they did for the screen test.
Me too. I would love to see the screen test. I hope that they post it at some point, like probably after the film. Usually those things like sometimes will leak. But yeah, I think like a DVD extra when the movie comes out on physical media, that would be great, because I would love to see that.
One of my favorite screen tests is the Christian Bale Batman one, where he's reading lines with Amy Adams.
Ooh.
Look it up. It's good stuff.
I'm gonna look that up for sure.
It's good stuff, because I think somebody just like brought her in and was like, "Hey, Amy, can you read with him?" And she was like, "Sure, great."
Oh my god, that's so wild.
And of course, Amy Adams, like even before she played Lois Lane in the Snyderverse, she was like a big DC fan, like a big Superman fan. That's why she went on Smallville, was because she wanted to be part of like, the Superman
so
thing.
Funny. I didn't know that she was a big Superman fan.
Oh
that
yeah,
makes it so much better.
She loves Superman. So for her
that
to
makes her so much cooler.
So for her to just pop in on a Batman reading with Christian Bale, I'm sure she was like, "Oh, sure, no problem." Yeah. And like inside, she was like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing." So definitely check that out if you've never seen it. It's pretty good. Well, Morgan, I guess, would you like to talk about Tom King's reaction to this news?
Yeah. So Tom King reacted on Instagram as well, writing, "She's Supergirl and she doesn't give a bleep about about slings and arrows. Perfect casting. Couldn't be more excited to see Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, the world built brought to life by this incredible actor. Insanity. It started so small. ...
Yeah, I'm actually really happy for Tom King. We have an interview with him on Supergirl Radio. If you would like to listen to that, it's actually very informative. If you have never read Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, go listen to that episode and that interview we did with Tom King. He talked about the inspiration behind the story. He talked about how he wanted to have his legacy be the fact that Supergirl comics would keep getting made, and that people would see that as like a thing that would be a seller. So I think it's really awesome that Tom King had that in mind when he wrote the comic, and here now a big feature film is going to be made off of his story, partially inspired by his story, whatever that means.
Whatever that means.
But I'm really happy for Tom, because I really appreciated that he not only wanted that to be his goal, that like he wanted to kind of inform DC Comics, like, hey, keep making Supergirl comics, but also that he used so much of Supergirl's mythology within this 8 issues, I think it is, an 8-issue story, just like a small story, but there's so much Supergirl mythology embedded in it that I really appreciate. He didn't have to put Comet the Super Horse in there. He didn't have to put the Peter David Earth Angel wings in there. He didn't have to do that. He didn't have to go back to Argo City and Supergirl's tragedy and her backstory, but he did. And I appreciate all of that. So Tom King,
friend
so
of the pod.
happy. Friend of the pod. So happy for him.
I don't know if he would say that, but we claim him as a friend of and I think, hopefully, fingers crossed, DC will see all of the buzz around Supergirl and will want to capitalize on it, and maybe will give us a new Supergirl comic, a new title for her.
Maybe so. Mind the Gap says in the chat that trades that James Gunn makes a post about tend to sell out, so it's good for DC Comics. Yeah. After he made that video where he talked about Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow for the first time and announced that a movie would get made, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow was sold out for a long time. So, so I hope that people continue to read it, because it is genuinely one of the greatest comic books I've ever read.
And I think the other plug I will give Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow is that if you're not a big comic book person, if you're not like somebody who's like super well versed in the comics, it's an incredible entry point. It is a story with a lot of scope and breadth, but it is also a story that is very singularly focused on Supergirl. So if you like Supergirl enough to listen to this podcast, but maybe comics have been kind of like a little bit overwhelming, just pick up Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. I promise it's not overwhelming. There's not a bunch of backstory. You don't have to like cross-reference 10 different other comic books to understand what's going on. It is a self-contained story, and that's also, I think, why it makes it so easy to like recommend it to people. I always feel good recommending it to people, even though I don't know how much comics they've read, because I feel like you can just dip into Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow and just enjoy it as what it is, which is this like standalone, powerful story.
Yeah, I think we've had our fair share of frustrations with comics about that in I think it was Supergirl Rebirth, during that era where we were reading through Rebirth, and it was difficult. We missed an issue prior to that because it wasn't part of the Supergirl title, and we were very confused about some things that were happening. And so sometimes comics are overwhelming and frustrating in that aspect. But to Morgan's point, she is correct. Woman of Tomorrow is a self-contained story, very short, beautiful art, has a good dynamic between Supergirl and this lead. And for me, in reading it, even though I was confused about the ending, and Morgan was right and cleared it up for me. But what I love about the story in terms of the way that Tom King writes it is that it's through Ruthie's eyes for a large portion of it. And she thinks Supergirl is just the coolest thing. And that makes me so happy that there is a character in a story where she's just bragging on Supergirl the whole time. And so, so if you want something where like, Supergirl is really celebrated, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow is that story. Well, I guess, Morgan, are there any thoughts that you wanted to share before we wrapped up our casting section here?
You know what? I'm excited. I was pulling a little bit for Meg, I'll be honest, because she did the voice in the animated and she did a good job. But now that we have our Supergirl, I'm so excited to have another live action on-screen Supergirl. Milly seems great. I've heard, good things about, her performances, and I'm going to look them up. But I think, it sounds like everybody's really excited about her, and that makes me excited about her too. It makes the movie seem more real, like it's really going to happen. And that's what I'm excited about.
Things seem to be progressing in all of the ways that would actually make it so that it would get made.
I'm excited that
somebody writing a script.
I'm excited that she's like the second project up Because
Yes.
I feel like, as we know from the last time around, the later projects maybe didn't happen. But the early ones definitely did. And so if something goes wrong, I feel like we'll probably get Supergirl. Like, we might not get whatever the next one is after Supergirl. But I feel good that we're gonna get 2 at least.
Here's the thing. If Superman Legacy just kind of flops, not a lot of interest, they'll be like, maybe that was a fluke. We'll just try it with the second one, see how it does. And then Supergirl's up. And then, like, no matter how well it does, it doesn't matter.
That's what we got it.
Yeah, we got it. We got it.
Too late for you guys. Doesn't matter how bad it flops. We've got it forever now.
So I'm sure they will hopefully be both great. I'm looking for the best. Hopefully things will be looking up. I do have high expectations for Woman of Tomorrow. I'm not gonna lie. Super high expectations. My friend Christy Robinson, also a friend of the pod, we interviewed her about her Supergirl cosplay one time, long time ago. But she said a quote one time that I've always remembered and I've adopted for myself. She was talking about the Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power TV show. She's a huge Lord of the Rings fan. And she told me, I asked her, I was like, so what do you think about this new Lord of the Rings show? And she was like, I have very high expectations and they need to be met. And I was like,
what did she end up thinking about it?
I think she liked it.
Okay.
So,
because I attempted that one.
Yeah, so I think she liked it okay. I don't know if it was something she was like wowed over, but I guess if she liked it, maybe her expectations were met. But I've adopted that quote for myself, especially with Woman of Tomorrow. I have high expectations and they need to be met. So I am very excited about the prospect of having a new Supergirl. That's always very exciting because along with that comes what is she going to look like? What's the suit going to look like? What's she going to be doing? That's all very exciting. So I think I would personally like to go check out some of her earlier material as well. So Upright, I got to figure out how to watch it because I actually thought that was a cute little story. So we'll see if we can watch that. But definitely, if you want to see a lot of her in terms of a lot of episodes and something more accessible, maybe House of the Dragon is available on Max. So if you do have a Max subscription, you can check it out there. I will say it is of a mature adult rating.
If you've seen Game of Thrones, you know what you're in for, basically. If you haven't seen Game of Thrones, you should
prepare yourself.
Look some stuff up.
Yeah.
First off, you're going to want to look up like a deep dive on Game of Thrones, the history of the world of Westeros. And then secondly, there's going to be some sex and violence in there. So you should just kind of prepare yourself. It's usually you're like, oh God, why would they show that in a lot of different capacities?
Various relationships too.
Various things.
I was disappointed. Not enough dragons.
You know what? I feel like
was
they're promised
dragons
with that title, and there's not a.
There's like maybe like 2 or 3 instances with dragons, and I'm like, what? I don't know. I feel like there needs to be more dragons.
Did they like cut their CGI dragons?
The dragons were really difficult. They're like a hassle on set.
The dragons are real divas, if I have to be to be honest.
Watch out for those diva dragons on your next TV show. Okay, well, I think that does it for all of our thoughts. So thank you all in the chat for sharing your thoughts with us. Let's see. One last comment I wanted to bring up that I didn't get to. Carrie says, I don't know anything about Milly, but based on the type of edgy, brash car we're getting, she looks the part. And it also says my favorite incarnation of cars from DC Superhero Girls. So that one is also, well, the second iteration of DC Superhero Girls, also more of a brash, edgy type character. So I definitely can see how Milly could portray Kara in that aspect, given some things I've seen. And she also knows how to ride a horse. So it's a plus.
That's true. Actually, that is true. Because they're all riding horses all the time on Game of Thrones.
Yeah, so in House of the Dragon, she is able to ride a horse.
What if that was like what put her over the edge. They're like, they got her and they've got Meg and they got them both on a wall and they're like, I just can't decide. And then somebody was like, she can ride a horse. Good job, Milly.
That really put her over the edge. So that I was excited about. I was like, oh, in House of the Dragon, she's riding a white horse. How fortuitous.
Interesting. Put it on our vision board.
James Gunn saw her riding a white horse and was like, oh.
Huh. Oh. Why do I think she'd make a good Supergirl? I'm not quite sure.
So that must have been the kicker. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Supergirl Radio. Now, we're not going to do the Supergirl Radio and DCTV podcast plugs as we have in the past because they're out of date. And I did not get a chance to record some new stuff. So we're just going to wing it here just so that we can like update things as accurate information. So all that to say, if you want to keep in touch with Supergirl Radio, you can go to supergirlradio.com, find our website, find all of our episodes, find our archive that goes back to 2015 if you want to go back that far. We've got a lot of episodes, over 400 of them actually. So if you want to check in on Supergirl material, there's probably something for you in our archive that you might be interested in. If you want to contact us by email, you can check us out at supergirlradio@gmail.com. We would love your feedback. Feel free to email us. We will read it on the podcast and respond to it. So feel free to share your thoughts that way. You can also find us here on the DCTV podcast YouTube channel. So make sure you like and subscribe here. This is where we are exclusive here on the DCTV podcast YouTube channel. Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, with the occasional other day if we have scheduling issues, but regularly Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. So feel free to join us either on YouTube or the Supergirl Radio Facebook page. We stream there as well. And I guess what else am I missing, Morgan? I guess we are
everything, isn't it?
We are also part of the Multiverse of Color Network, which is a website that houses a lot of different opinions and varying news reports and podcasts and movie reviews, comic book reviews, all kinds of things. So if you want to check out Multiverse of Color, you can do that as well. But I think that is going to cover us for Supergirl Radio plugs. And I guess maybe we could shout out the T Public Store. So Morgan, would you like to do that?
I love to shout out the T Public Store. Actually, it's one of my favorite things. It's definitely something I don't forget to do with some regularity. But guess what? We talked about Supergirl, and we have some Girl of Steel designs in the DC TV podcast T Public Store that we would love to suggest.
Yeah, so we've got obviously some Supergirl stuff, but we also have stuff from Green Arrow and The Flash and Legends of Tomorrow and Superman and Lex Luthor and the bad guys. So if you want some DC merch, check out the DC TV podcast T Public Store. We've got a link in the video description and also in the audio podcast and on our website. So if you want to click on that link, you can click on the link and you don't even have to. If you're like, I already got all my DC stuff, you can click on that link and still go search for other things. And it still helps support the podcast. So just want to make people aware of that. But we got some really cool and very cute Supergirl stuff. So if you want to get Kara Danvers as a Funko on a mug, we've got that for you. So it's very cool stuff. So if you need some new Supergirl merch, head over to the DCTV podcast, a T Public Store. And we would also like to thank our legion of super sponsors. These are the people who help support Supergirl Radio through our Patreon. These people are Michael, Anne Marie, Yvonne, Nicola, Abby, Miriam, Nicole, Brian, Ethan, Danny, Majuba, Zachary, Annie, and Rachel. And if you'd also like to become a legion of super sponsor, you can go to patreon.com/Supergirl Radio. And if you were a Supergirl Radio or a Legion of Super sponsor, you would have gotten a video of Morgan and me planning out 2024.
Scheduling. We felt really good about it. We were like, nothing's going to throw this off. This was just last week.
This is just last week. We had it figured out. Now we've had to adjust some things. So if you see that video, know that it's out of date now. But the plan is still mostly there.
It's still mostly there. It just shifted a little bit. It just shifted.
And if you would like to check me out, you can find me in a couple of places. I'm on a social media platform called Vero at Derby Kid, where I post about what I'm watching and listening to. You can also find me on Instagram at the Derby Kid. I also have a YouTube channel that you can find at youtube.com/duckmilkprod. That's where I do my personal reviews of things and various other videos. I would also like to shout out DC Cinematic Minute, my week of minutes with Mark and Nate over there, talking about minutes 171 through 175 of Zack Snyder's Justice League have been released. So I definitely encourage you to go check them out. Not selfishly just because it was me, but because we had some really good conversations, especially the last minute for minute 175. I thought that was a really solid analysis. And also we talked about how that shot in Zack Snyder's Justice League of Lois getting the flannel out of the box. It's not a real fancy shot, but we tried to figure out how that was done because it's not exactly what you think. And so we talked a lot about that, which made my nerdy sort of camera operator heart happy. So definitely go check that out. You can also find a travel blog that I do with my brother on social media at Oasis Broom. Got to get back to doing content for that, but you can check us out over there.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Mojotastic. Also on Threads. On Threads, guys.
Because you can never leave.
Join the party. Join us. But you can also find me as a co-host on the Legendary Ladies podcast. We're at the Legendary Ladies on YouTube and Instagram, and at Legends_podcast on Twitter. And last week, the ladies talked about the Oscar nominations. This week, we're going to be covering the Mean Girls movie musical. You know, Mean Girls, the musical, based on the movie Mean Girls. Did we all follow that?
It's just like that 30 Rock joke about Mystic Beats of the musical.
So funny how much of a 30 Rock joke. It's kind of like a Russian nesting doll of jokes because it's like a 30 Rock joke, but like Mean Girls was also written by Tina Fey, so it's like it's great. But yeah, we're going to be talking about the musical version of Mean Girls that came out, I think, last week. So if you have thoughts about Mean Girls, the musical, or just Mean Girls, the movie, and how it stacks up, you can always email those to us. We are thelegendaryladies@gmail.com. I always have to think about that really hard, even though it is the title of our podcast. But you should shoot us an email and let us know what you thought about the movie. And we are going to be talking about it this Thursday. So
thank you for reminding me that that was a thing that was coming out or is out now. So I need to go check that out because I do love Mean Girls.
Listen, Mean Girls is a classic. It's a classic.
Yeah, and I guess they brought some of those actors back is because I think Tina Fey is in it again.
Tina Fey is in it again, as is Tim Meadows.
Right.
And Lindsay Lohan, I'm not going to say where or when, but she does pop up in the movie. So
Easter egg.
Yeah, she had a fun cameo. I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to say she pops up.
Is she in the hoodie and like yelling she doesn't even go here? Is that
like honestly I wish that was it. That would have been actually
that would
incredible.
be amazing.
That would have been incredible. Lindsay I have a very special connection to Lindsay Lohan because Lindsay and I are the exact same age.
Oh.
She was born. We have the exact same birthday on the exact same
really?
year. So every now and then, like back in college, I was like, this feels unfair to me because look at her. She's so rich basically and successful. And then I'm not gonna rag on Lindsay. Lindsay had a couple of tough years, right?
She did.
And during that time, I was like, you know what? My life's not that bad. So Lindsay doesn't know that like she is the yardstick of which I measure my own accomplishments, but it's good to see her back on screen. It's like, no, Lindsay,
that's good to know.
Twin.
When it's your birthday, I'm going to send you a message saying happy birthday, Lindsay Lohan.
Oh my God, yes.
I'm gonna do you one better. I'm gonna go buy you a birthday card and write "Happy Birthday, Lindsay Lohan."
I love that.
I'm gonna mail it to
Actually,
you.
that's going to be such a delight.
I probably shouldn't have told you. I
will
was
not
gonna do that,
remember it either, so it'll be like just very surprising. I'm like, oh my God. I feel like just a fun fact about me that's like not actually that fun, but I always tell people, Lindsay Lohan and I are the exact same age.
My birthday fun fact is that my very specific birthday is mentioned in Doom Patrol. And
that's right.
And the quote about the date is something about like humanity peaked on this date, and I was like, yeah, that's right.
yeah, it did. That's so good.
That is my birthday fun fact. The only famous person I think that's born on my day was Dustin Hoffman, maybe. On my birthday. So I guess that's cool. I like Dustin Hoffman. He was Captain Hook. And my favorite Peter Pan movie. So there is that. Well, I think we have covered our thoughts about the casting and all the news reports and all the things surrounding it. So I guess that's going to do it for this episode of Supergirl Radio. But until next time, I'm still Rebecca Johnson.
And I'm still Morgan Glennon. And we're excited to see Milly fly on the big screen.
McGurk, I love typing.
Not mess with my Google Docs, Meeksy.
Supergirl Radio is going live every night of the week. How do you like it? Is becoming a human burrito a plus or a minus? I don't know. It does seem snug.
I mean, they say you are what you eat.
Kira. I love that.
So I do a podcast called Supergirl Radio, and one of our segments is Lena Luthor, Boardroom or Ballroom, because
she looks like a boss in this coat.
Nasty Luthor like a different Luthor? It's not just Lena being mean?
No.
Helen Slater here. So fun to know that you're hosting a podcast called Supergirl Radio.
Yeah!